believe it or not, your assets might be the biggest headache of the loan process. So I recently closed a transaction with a client. It's actually kind of common where their bank account had a bunch of different transactions. We had multiple deposits. So be careful of this because this is one of the biggest hangups in the mortgage process. A lot of people think my credit score, my income, verifying this, I get freaked out. To be honest, some of the stuff that causes the biggest headache and bumps in the process is assets, right? Anything you're using for cash to close, whether it's reserves or money we need for the down payment or closing costs. So we go back 60 days. That's traditionally normally the rule. You have to go back 60 days on any assets that you're trying to use. So again, down payment, closing costs, or reserves. Okay, so anything in the last 60 days, the underwriter is going to look at. So some of the common things we see is large deposits. It varies from lenders what they consider a large deposit is at 25% of your income. Is it traditionally something that you just normally don't see? You know, there's a lot of Uber drivers and cab drivers and cash-based, tip-based people here. Their large deposits are different than someone who's W-2'd as an engineer who gets direct deposit. So it's all different, but be careful when you put money into an account because if it comes from another account, this one client, pretty wealthy and had a good amount of money, he had a very good financial advisor, which is probably a good idea to not keep all your money in a savings account. That makes it easier for us. But he had his money in probably 4 or 5 different accounts, some investment accounts, some business accounts, and some personal. Well, he transferred all that money into one account at the end and said, hey, here you go, Mike. Here's all my money that I'm going to use for the down payment. Well, guess what? In the last 60 days, we see a ton of transactions and deposits going into that. So now, because of the rules and regulations, I have to paper trail that. So I have to be like, hey, Mr. Client, where'd this money come from? That came from this account. Okay, that came from this account. That came from this account. Guess what? I need 60 days of that account, that account, that account. Gets him a little irked. Not bad. This guy was pretty tech savvy and gave me all his PDFs. Not a big deal. But a lot of clients get a little pissed off and say, hey, I don't want to show you that account. I'm not using it. However, because the money came from that within the last 60 days, we had to paper trail it and get all that. So just be careful before you move a bunch of money around or have deposits in your account because that can make the road a little bit more bumpy for your loan officer. Another thing we look at too is sometimes recurring debt. So obviously we look at your credit report. That's the main debt we calculate your debt to income on. However, if the underwriter looks at your last 60 days or 2 months of bank statements and they say your recurring charge for maybe a car payment or some bigger number, not utilities, but something bigger that's not on your credit, guess what? They might be like, hey, listen, they didn't disclose this because sometimes it doesn't hit your credit for like 60, 90 days. I remember I bought mine in October one year. It didn't show up to my credit till January. So if I bought a home anytime in those 4 months, no one would have known I had a pretty hefty car payment. It could have derailed my debt to income ratio. Would have been on my bank statement because I make my payment 45 days after that. An underwriter would have caught that. Be like, hey, this is a significant payment. Are you an obligator on this debt? That could derail it as well. So again, be careful with your assets. Don't move the money around if you can't. If you have to, you have to. But talk to your loan officer, talk to your lender, explain to them what you're doing, and they can walk you and navigate you through the process.